start already, but I won't say what I'm thinking, because it'll be Christmas before you I'll say it anyway. I got off to a very fast start, I think, a very kind of abrupt start, I think. Normally there's kind of a surprise about as far as the attendance, but it is what it is, and it's going to get worse.
Oh, no, better. It's going to get better.
Maybe this year, but eventually we know what's coming.
We do.
Talked about that today, and I think we'll talk a little bit more about that.
We did, yes, sir.
Dr. Howard,
all right. Very good. Thank you. Well, I think Mr. Bryant has already introduced it appropriately. I want to send a very special thank you to the folks that are around this table, as well as the leaders that are here and those that aren't here, and we'll see Monday night. We did have an exciting start. It's been a very good start, and we started the first day of school by the district office was visiting schools and saw a lot of remarkable learning experiences, and that's what we're all about. Dr. Blankenship and Mr. Nicholson are going to update you on some things in terms of the learning experience, and of course the teaching experience as it goes with our increased enrollment, and she'll share where we are in terms of staffing and our enrollment numbers. But we certainly have seen the growth that we were anticipating. It is coming and coming full steam ahead. I do have to say, though, as a reminder to our board and to our entire community, that this year was the implementation year for a lot of work that began over the past couple of years. Number one, we have rezoned the entire school district, and our principals have done an amazing job with the support of people like Martha and others to make sure that our kids had what they needed and that we were very, very prepared for that rezoning. So East Jackson and South Jackson absorbed most of those children, but everybody was impacted to some extent, and it's just been such a pleasant experience to visit the schools because the kids are rolling. The kids are in a great place, and our teachers and leaders have really embraced that. So I think it was a great start. Very excited about what we'll see. I do want to give Mr. Farmer a chance to talk, because if you've had any sense of frustration, there probably has come from transportation, and that is certainly no fault of Mr. Farmer's. Let me tell you, if there's one thing that this board and our community needs to know is Mr. Farmer and 2 or 3 ladies who work in the back have been relentless in their commitment to making it better. I would say somewhere between 15 and 17 hours a day they've been given it. Tried to run them out about 8 o'clock on Friday because they were insistent on calling every person back. So the change in our routing system, as well as the increased enrollment, has really had an impact, and they've worked diligently, and they're still working diligently to improve it. But David, if you don't mind, because that has been probably one of our most impactful changes that we've had to adjust to, would you share some of the celebrations, but then some of the challenges we still have? And
absolutely, Dr. Howard. I first want to start off by thanking you and the board and everyone else for the support of the new buses that you allowed us to have this year. Those were critical in assisting us with the efforts that we have been doing over the past 3 months, 4 months, past year. But to see those new buses roll out the first day of school, that was something that we were very proud of, and we greatly appreciate that. Some of the celebrations that we have from our new routing system is the separation of our grade bands. And this has been something that a lot of parental feedback has come into play in the fact that they like the separation of the elementary, middle, and high school. In saying that, and this is a good thing, so it is a celebration, we have increased in our ridership participation. It is a great thing that it's going on. It's kind of a catch-22 in some ways, because it does create challenges for us. Also, too, the elimination of the express routes has reduced the congestion from one high school to the other school as far as bus traffic. Also, too, I know the elementary school principals, it has been a great thing because we don't have high schoolers and middle schoolers walking through elementary schools unsupervised. So these are our celebrations that we have. Now, with any new routing system, there's always challenges that we face. And some of the challenges right now are some of the routes are at or near capacity due to the increased ridership. Also, a few routes are longer than the set expectations that we had at the beginning of the school year. That's due to increased ridership and, of course, enrollment also. Solutions that we have to address these issues, because we want to be solutions oriented, is the fact that we are in the process of procuring and hiring additional drivers. I know that today I had 3 interviews and they all went well, and we are looking to add those drivers Monday, Tuesday, possibly even one tomorrow. So you know, it takes time, naturally. If you're not a veteran driver that has moved into our county, a new driver takes anywhere from a month and a half to train. So that is the things that we face, but these are the solutions that we are doing. The procurement and replacement of buses as we grow. The transportation department, as you know, has to grow also in order to accommodate the loads that we have on our buses currently. Another great thing that we've done is we have had magnetic signs created with the schools abbreviations on them. So West Jackson Elementary is WJES. And I actually had one to bring and show you, but for some reason it's still on my metal cabinet. So they were put on the buses today. They are beside the door side of the bus number. And what that does is the parents in the morning that have a question, is that my elementary bus, middle, or high school bus? Now, if you have just one student, it may not matter, but when you have one in each grade level, that is a big difference because you're not sure, did I miss the bus, did I not? So these are magnetic signs that are very clear, and also too, if we have subs sending to that school or a bus that breaks down, you take the magnet off, you put it on, and that bus becomes that school. So I am very excited in the fact that we are being solution oriented, and yes, Dr. Howard's right, we have spent countless hours working on solutions to alleviate and to accommodate our students, because we want every student to have that positive experience, not only at our schools, but also in our transportation department. And there again, we appreciate the new buses, and like I said, as we grow, we will need more buses and of course drivers to accommodate our growth.
And all 7 of them got here in time for the first day of school, all the buses?
The 8 regular ed buses.
Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, 8, okay, that's right. We're getting
Yes,
one
they
more.
did, and the one special ed
Good.
bus should be here hopefully by the middle or end of September. It takes a little longer with the specifications that we have to construct those buses.
Yeah. Well, I knew on Friday that the hours were really long, but what's it whittled down to now, the last folks getting home now?
As far as now,
Uh-huh.
I believe today it was 5:40. We have
Couple of middle school buses.
couple middle school buses, and that's pretty much, these new drivers are pretty much going to address the middle and high schools. That's where the biggest load capacity is. We have to remember that, you know, for middle and high school, 2 to the seat, that's about all we can do.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
And I
yes,
think-
ma'am, it has gotten better
Yeah,
from
yeah.
the first day, you know, not only by 30 minutes, but by an hour in some cases.
Yeah. Well, and they're on time now for kids to be able to get breakfast in and that kind of thing in the mornings.
We are continuing working on that issue. I know that, I want to say the majority of our buses are getting there on time or shortly thereafter. We do have a few that are heavy, that due to the length of the route and the amount of people that ride the route, that they are getting there just in time.
Yeah.
So are they getting breakfast? Yes, but it's not what we want to see, or expectation
it's
that
not
we set.
where we want to
Right,
be yet.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
But the problem or issue has gotten better, yes, ma'am.
Good.
That was a lot of explanation, but I feel like you as a board need it and deserve it, because that's probably the folks' #1 concern right now, and rightfully so. My own children missed the bus the first day, and I said, "It's your fault." I mean, I hate it, so we had to figure it out. We figured it out. Daddy stayed home. We didn't get out there early enough. That's all right. So anyway, I get it. It's a part of the process, and just appreciate the dedication that folks have, because they're relentless about making it better. So, and we will.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
5:40. Will that be the time from here on out? Will you be getting better on that? So what do you expect the time's gonna be from here on out? As you get,
Once we get, and like I said, it's not a process that's gonna be fixed in a week.
I know.
It's something that, you know, as drivers come in, we plug into the areas that we need. I would like to see that, no student gets home any later than 5 o'clock or 5:15, depending upon, you know, the situation. But by 5 o'clock, I want our kids to be home and, enjoying the evening with their family. So that is our goal that I have challenged, myself and our department. And I want to also say too and add that our drivers, I can't say how proud I am enough of each and every one of them, especially our new drivers and our veteran drivers, because not only did they go to open houses to make sure and ensure that children were getting on the right buses, but they have been dedicated and determined also to do anything that they can to make this work. They have to understand that these 88-degree days and 86-degree days, it's 10 degrees warmer on that bus. So I appreciate the schools and giving them water. I appreciate the support of my drivers because they are the ones on the front lines. And I give the credit to all of them and Ms. Reynolds and Ms. Sears for everyone making it happen.
So David, I think we talked about, and we looked today, we've got, all of our elementary are less than 90-minute route. So if they leave at 2:35, we want them home before 4 or by 4 at the latest. But no, our goal was an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. We're gonna have some until we get this divided. They're gonna be an hour and a half, unfortunately. So but our goal was an hour. So we don't want anybody on the bus for more than an hour and a half at all. So 5 o'clock would be a drop dead latest that we would want.
What time is your first pickup?
The first pickup.
Elementary at 2:35. Yeah.
Afternoon.
David,
first
afternoon?
Morning, I think.
Morning.
Oh,
In the
morning, I'm sorry.
The first pickup in the morning is anywhere from 6 to 6:15. It depends on the children that we're picking up and where they need to go. But that's what we're facing right now. Now, like I said, when we start plugging in those drivers, then those times on some routes should improve. But right now, that's what we face. All routes aren't like that. But we do have one or two that are that early. Certainly not our expectation, but it is the reality of what we face currently.
So you think it'll be a month and a half before you get that better?
I hope not. I truly do not hope it will take that long. I know that, like I said, from Friday till today, there is a huge difference in the time frame. And just the influx of calls that have been since Friday to today. There's still a lot of work that our department needs to do. And we recognize those challenges and, you know, we are moving forward with our solutions to take care of those routes that we know are here. And we are cognizant of that and we want to make sure that every child has that good experience on the bus like they do in the classroom.
Well, and if we're able to, I noticed there's like 4 that you've got on the list for new hires, so how many more do you think you really need in order to get this where you want it to be?
That is kind of, I say it's hard to say due to the fact that if ridership does increase with enrollment more, then it will be a continuation.
Yeah, and normally it does after that first week.
I was gonna say, I would expect it after the first week.
Yeah, there'll be more to ride
right now,
in the morning and afternoon.
with the amended budget, we put in the cost for 6 additional drivers as of now, so.
Is that including the 4 that's on here? Okay.
And I'll just give you an example of East Jackson Middle School. Out of 567 kids, and this was a rough count for our drivers today, 419 of those were on buses today.
Yeah.
And so
It's almost 80%.
Yeah, so I was gonna say 75%.
Which is
great.
much higher,
We're taking
much higher.
advantage of those opportunities.
it's great, but
We
that-
had somewhere
Yeah, but
between 40 and
that also
50% as a
presents
running.
issues too, trying to accommodate everybody.
Yeah.
that's correct.
It's a compliment to the school district, I think.
Oh, it
that
is.
they feel comfortable putting their children
Absolutely.
on a bus in the morning.
Yeah.
And of course, many parents, working parents, they don't have any other choices, you know,
No,
they've
not
they've
with
got
the
to do
schedule,
that,
they gotta
you
do
know.
that.
And I think that some of, listening to the radio starting at 5 o'clock in the morning, because they're on there, some of the delay really is the dedication that our drivers have, because they'll call Michelle that you missed one, and because they know many parents will leave to go to work, they'll go back around and pick them up, which then delays the route a little bit, but they don't leave them standing there. They make sure they get them, and so that sometimes is an additional delay. So service mindset certainly is there, and we're gonna have to keep working on it, but there's tremendous effort in place to continue improvement. So thank you, David, we appreciate that. We'll just keep working at it, and I hope there's a day you don't work 15 hours a day. That's the goal, for sure.
That day will come, but I do appreciate everyone's understanding.
Absolutely, very good.
How many extra buses do you have right now that if you got drivers that you could fill?
Well, I'm
6.
fixing to fill 4, and that leaves me 4 to 5. Right
That
now.
putting the buses that we just retired
Yes,
back
sir.
on the
the ones
road.
we're trying to retire.
Yes, sir. That's correct. So as far as buses, I'm in the same position as last year. There again, putting the buses that have been fully depreciated.
96, 97, 98.
97, 98 back on the road.
Yeah. And be mindful that we're, with this tomorrow night, after school activities, if you have to pull drivers off afternoon routes to accommodate competitions, that if there's additional glitches that we're going to have to keep working on.
Because that does, a lot of those competitions fall during route time. And that's just the nature of that race. And we definitely want to accommodate our athletes, and it becomes quite difficult, but yet not a challenge we can't face nor solve, but it does.
Double up. You got to double up on other routes, right?
Well, and hadn't the thought been that the drivers that would take, like the elementary kids, because they should be finishing first, that then they would be the ones that could take care of the after-school activities?
That's exactly
Is
right.
that gonna, looks like it's gonna play out that way?
That
pretty
is,
much.
and has panned out, and that is
Yeah.
our plan. And we also have those drivers that, which are not many, available to go and assist with the middle school
Run a second route.
on a second route.
Yeah.
We currently have that going on now,
Yeah.
which,
Yeah.
gives us a taste of what a true 3-tier system.
Are there any areas, I know that you and I have talked about this as far as having multiple stops within a very short period as far as consolidating
Yes, sir.
that,
We've talked about
I've
that.
followed many buses down Newcut, and to where there's like every driveway they stop, to where it seems like there could be some consolidation, and then Johnny and Susie could be there standing waiting for the bus rather than sitting in the car, and 5 minutes later come to the bus too, because as you know, I'm an impatient driver. But anyway, I
You
mean,
and many
and
others.
there are many other people in the same way, but when you see that, as far as those are some things that certainly would help your time.
Yes, sir.
Seconds matter when you've got the routes that you have. So the more that you can add up, I don't know, maybe even the way they load, as far as, because they go all the way to the back and load forward, or go forward and go all the way back. And so now that you don't have high schoolers that hog the back of the bus, and the little kids get to the front, maybe something that the bus driver could think about as far as to how they would load the bus quicker.
And we have discussed that concerning the bus stop locations in a subdivision. It becomes a challenge in some aspects, but the subdivisions with sidewalks, of course, provide a clear walkway. But yes, sir, we have and currently are in discussion concerning that issue. And yes, it would save, of course, on time.
Thank you, David, and the whole transportation department and our community for their patience as we just continue to try to get better. But all in all, we had a phenomenal start, and I want to again thank our teachers and our leaders, because I think our kids, and we had some great professional learning, and we had a great new teacher orientation, so I think we started off with some real remarkable experiences, and that's exciting. So just to move us along here, just a reminder that September's work session will be inclusive of our first board advisory council. I have a list of our advisory council in here for you, and I'll be sending letters to these folks the first of next week to remind them and invite them of these dates, and would welcome your topics. But I do want to ask your blessing in the first topic. We'll probably discuss like a two-year calendar, as well as some planning for facilities, because we know that the growth is coming, and we already have some preliminary plans, but especially in our Houston Brazelton community area, we want to talk a good bit about prioritization and the plan for our facilities development. So that will be the priority for our Board Advisory Council, as well as highlighting some of the remarkable experiences that are happening in our classrooms. So that's just a reminder. And then this is just an annual reminder that we are blessed to have a great relationship with our Sheriff's Department, and so this is your SRO intergovernmental agreement. We have, our SROs have been, like all agencies, as the economy has come back around, it's, you know, there's a need. I think Sheriff Mangum has shared that they still are down on a few deputies, but they have managed to continue our support, so we'll ask you to act on the intergovernmental agreement. It's the same one that we've had for the past few years, and we continue to have a great partnership and appreciate their support in our schools. So had a great start, continue with that. They help us with traffic, they help us with safety, and most importantly, they help us with relationships with kids, and so they've really been a benefit to us. So very good, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Nicholson, and as I do that, I just want to say a special thank you to 3 school leader groups that are here, because we are reinvesting in our school performance reports, so that what you used to know as our accountability reports, and instead of doing all of those in one meeting and rushing folks and probably a little bit of information overload, we've decided to do 3 per month for the first few months of our work session, so that you get an update. So we're excited to have East Jackson Elementary School, East Jackson Middle, and West Jackson Middle here, and we're going to hear from them in just a few minutes. But I think Mr. Nicholson is going to give us a general overview of our 2017 performance data.
I am, so you know I'm known for my brevity when we talk about data. Sarcasm. You do have several pages, and what I noticed that we're going to have to add to our instructional budget is a printer that actually has green ink in it, because one of them should have red, yellow, and green, but
so white is good.
Yeah, white is good, yeah. So you have 2 sets. I'm going to start with the sets that have the blue and the red rows going across the top that look like that, and they should say the Jackson County Schools Georgia Milestones End of Grade Assessment 2017, and you'll have one that's for 3-5, one that's for 6-8, and then you'll have 8-12 actually. I'm not going to, and so I think they're in reverse order in the packet actually. I'm not going to go into great detail with these, but I do ask that you review them, and please call upon us with any questions you do have, because this is the type of stuff that we spend days looking at, and so trying to accomplish this in great detail in a couple minutes is rather difficult. But just to kind of walk you through that particular form, what you're looking at, each one of them at the very top has the whether students are below grade level in reading or above grade level in reading, and it's going to be the same thing for 3-5, for 6-8, and actually as you start perusing some of those percentages, obviously blue in this situation is what we want. So you've got the schools off to the left-hand side, and you can kind of start doing a relative comparison of how schools are performing in regard to reading, ELA, math, science, and social studies. We couldn't share data with you at the last board meeting because it was embargoed, and we had some preliminary data, but the value in this particular data is that we now have the entire state data, and that means we also have our RESA region data. And historically, we always have been above the state. And we have been typically above the RESA in most places, but sometimes we'll be a little below the RESA, but the RESA average is always higher than the state. We have a pretty competitive RESA in Northeast Georgia. And so if we're above the RESA, we're usually really happy. And if we're right at it, we're still pretty happy. If we're below the RESA, then we're not always very happy. And if we're below the state, which has not usually been the case, we're definitely not overly pleased. And so as you're looking at that, I want to tell you a little bit about what's happened in the state. In the past, you used to report out and say, we have 80%, we have 42 that are proficient, and we have another 40+%, and we're in the high 80% of students that are, we didn't call proficient and distinguished underneath the CRCT, but we had data where our performance appeared to be rather high. Well, across the state, when they said they're changing the expectations and increasing the rigor, and they certainly meant it. So I want to read some numbers for you that you don't have in front of you, so that you can get a sense of where the state's grade band performance is. So for instance, in elementary school, the highest percentage in the state of students that are proficient and above, and Jackson County, we don't really pay attention, should say pay attention. We focus, 2 is not good enough. We want all of our students in level 3 and level 4. Now 2 and above is passing, but 2 to us means we've got work to do. We're not happy with 2s. So these percentages I'm going to share are percentage of students with level 3 and 4. So in elementary school, the highest percentage out of all the content areas and all the grade levels was 4th grade math in the state, and that was only 45%. So that was the highest percentage of students proficient and above across the entire state, which in years past, that would have been abysmally low. The lowest in elementary is 39%, and that's 5th grade social studies. So the elementary span is from 39% to 45%. We're not used to playing that low. We're not used to being below 50% at all. I share this because while there are some areas that we're really significantly concerned, and I'm going to talk to you about some ways that we're going to address it, the state trend is very low. For instance, in middle school, the highest is 43% in 8th grade ELA, and the lowest is 29%. Listen to that, 29% of 8th graders in science are proficient or above in the state. So when they said rigor has been increased, the test scores are showing that rigor has been increased. High school is a little bit higher, 53% 9th grade lit. That is the highest percentage of students in level 3 and 4. And then 35% in Algebra 1, which that means in the state, slightly more than a third of our students are passing Algebra 1. I share that contextually because we have, like I said, we have some work to do, and we have some places that where we're below the state, that's not acceptable. We know that, and we're committed to not having that continue to be the case. But when you look at our percentages, I want you to have that frame of reference to know that it's not that Jackson County's percentages are the only ones that are lower. Everything across the board is lower. So when we look at 45%, 52%, in some cases that's above those state averages. Does that make sense? So this is going to be for your review. I want to show you some trends, but I do want you to take a look between now and the board meeting. Mr. Bright, you have a question?
That's the milestones. How are we doing as far as the maps? As far as where I know as we're going through the year, we're seeing that we're better than that.
Yes. So the map is what, and Mr. Johnson, certainly feel free to add anything you like. The map is proving to be a very accurate predictor of our milestone performance in achievement, but also in the growth. So the good thing about this is now we have this wake-up call that we're doing everything we knew to do in years past, but we understand the expectation. We've got a better sense of, you don't know what the test looks like. You don't know what the cutoff scores are. You just know the standards and you know what you've done in the past. Now, as we have that map data, and we'll administer the first round late August, 1st of September, and we'll do the last one in the spring, and we'll have one in January for the middle. We'll actually be able to be more diagnostic in our approach to make sure that we are not looking at data like this after it's already come out, which we were able to predict. The problem that we had is we didn't know what the state percentages were going to be. So we knew if we were making adequate growth, we just didn't know what that cutoff score was going to equate to on the milestone.
How do the tests correlate as far as the MAPS test, the wording, the verbiage, how they're laid out in correlation to the milestones? Is it like you're getting Greek in front of you, you've never seen anything written this way or talked to you this way when you get to the milestones? And it's not that we're teaching to take the test, but are we dealing with apples and apples here?
We're at least dealing with Fuji apples and pink lady apples.
Okay.
So both they're still on computer. What's that? Those are expensive apples. That was the map that I was referring to. The Fuji was the milestone. Yeah, they're very similar. The difference is with the map is it adjusts and it's milestones. You sit down and you're basically taking what is put in front of you, and the map is really trying to target where your strengths and your deficits are. Right. But the types of questions, the type of verbiage, the thing is that NWEA, the organization that puts out MAP, they do every 3 years for each state. They do an analysis and comparative of item analysis, performance analysis, and they do the best that they can do to make sure that when students in each state are taking the MAP assessment, that you can use that as an accurate predictor of performance. So that because of that, they have to have, it's not everything identical word to word, but sure. pretty commensurate.
And you may hear some reference when our schools speak to the map, because they can also speak to their.
Most certainly. So what I do want to share, and please continue to ask questions because there's a lot here. What I do want to show you is the ones that are white, red, and yellow instead of green, red, and yellow. This is work that we did at the July combined principal and assistant principal meeting. And this is the one that really paints a picture of where we have our work cut out and where we have some celebrations. And I'm going to look at the one first that says 2017 achievement relative comparison, RESA and state. And it's this one right here, and starts with East Jackson Elementary School and goes all the way down to West Jacksonville School. The format of these is all going to be very similar. But what we did, we had all of our principals, assistant principals came together, and we said, here is our data, here is the state's data, here is the RESA data. Let's just own it. If we ask our teachers to own the children and to look at student work, this is going to be very sensitive. There are going to be things that we don't necessarily are comfortable talking about, but we have to help each other. And let's just figure out, where are we falling below the state, where are we falling below the RESA, and where are we above the state, and where are we above the RESA. And so when you look at that one, you will see that red is not an area that we want to be. Red means, in that case, that we're either, there's a column for each one. For ELA, you'll see there's the state column and then the RESA column. Again, RESA is a higher average, and there are no percentages in there. The percentages are all on that other spreadsheet. This was just for us to have a visual to figure out where we know we need to concentrate our efforts. And as we went through that process, it validated a lot of what we already knew, but at the same time, it laid out some sense of urgency. And one of that, and I'm going to talk about some of the interventions, but as Dr. Howard already indicated, we want to make sure that we have every school leader, every teaching learning member here to be able to have an actual conversation instead of a presentation, so that when you have questions about it, we can address those. Because where we do have areas of imperative need for improvement, we have plans behind it. And so we want to make sure that y'all are aware of what those plans are. But you can see there. I wish you could see the green, because there is green on there. So white is good. But the red is not where we want to be, and there are some schools that are going to stand out. And we know the story behind the schools. We know the work that's going on. One thing I can tell you is this is just achievement. That page is just achievement. And so when you look at some of the schools and we start talking about growth, I've used the example last year. If you're running a marathon, and if you're running a marathon and you're running a 15-minute mile versus a 10-minute mile versus an 8-minute mile, you're all going to finish the marathon, but it's going to take you longer. And if you're starting with a longer minute per mile run time, which is some of our schools that started with some deficits, then it's going to take them longer to get there. But the difference is they're shaving off time of their miles at a rate that's far exceeding some of the schools that are finishing that marathon more quickly, and that doesn't show up here. I will tell you that we do a greater, more in-depth analysis of our data than the state requires us to do. So you also have in here, so that's the elementary. You will also have the EOC, which is the one that looks like this, and that's got East Jackson, Jackson County High School, East Middle, and West Middle. And I'm not going to steal their thunder, but we have some success stories there that I certainly want our school leaders to share with you. Again, same concept. It shows you above, below, or at the state. But the other one or the other two that are, when I mentioned that we go into greater detail than the state, there is one that says elementary and middle school 3-year cohort growth. And it starts with East Jackson Elementary at the top and West Jackson Middle at the bottom. The state does not look at things this way. The state looks at cohort growth. The state looks at average growth, and they look across and they say, based on peers that performed relative to you within a small standard deviation, they determine whether or not students are growing at a commensurate rate. So gifted students, if they scored at the 96th percentile last year, and on average they all scored at 96.4, and your students only scored at 96.2, well, they're still blowing it out of the water, but they're not growing at the same rate. Likewise, if you have students with disabilities or EIP students or second language learners that are scoring maybe at a 77 percentile, then the next year if most of them score at a 78 percentile, that's a larger, or what did I say, 77, let's go to 82. That's a larger span of growth, but they're as long as they're performing relative to their academic peers, that's what we look at. But in here, we're actually tracking real students in our schools that took the assessments in cohorts. So I'm going to use East Jackson Elementary as an example there here, and as we looked at their data this week, if you look across that top row, you will see East Jackson Elementary, 3rd grade, and it says current 5th. Those are, we did this past year, so that's actually 6th graders sitting in Ms. Barnett's school at this point. If you look all the way across the right, you'll see where it says math, 2015, they had 53%, that was of the students that were proficient or above. Then 2016, they saw an increase to 60%, and then in 2017, they were at 51%. When you look at this, that looks like, oh my goodness, we've lost these children. Something happened that they're not growing. That 51% is way above, remember I shared those averages a few minutes, it's way above the state average. So their achievement is already way above the state average, and their growth is actually way above the state average. We're just really looking at consistency and patterns at the school level and saying, all right, well, what happened then? They're still doing better than the state, but how did they go from 53 to 51? Was there a change in the teacher? Was it a change in the test? We get to a much more detailed, focused look with our data than the state requires, because if we don't do that, then we can't figure out what the root cause is. So this page, when you see red, it's not quite as alarming in terms of its significance as the other 2 pages. It just means we need to take a more careful look, and as East Jackson will present later, that's the same trend that the state followed. There was a increase from one year to the next, and there's a state level decrease, but their students were still performing above the state. I'm going to pause there. Questions, comments, thoughts, concerns? Mr. Johnson, do you have anything to add to?
Yeah, well, from working with our principals this summer and getting a chance to really dig into the data and look at it, we're trying to focus on both the achievement level, which is of course what we as the school system are measured at when it comes down to it as part of our CCRPI, but we're also measured on that growth component. So working with schools, and for example, I don't want to steal East Jackson Elementary's thunder, but they've had a lot of success with meeting that achievement level. So a lot of our conversations this summer was getting an opportunity to work with their teachers, and Jennifer and Cheryl, and let them talk about some of the things they're doing regarding their kid talks and some of our other schools, and really identifying, not just with East Jackson Elementary, but with all of our schools, identifying where are those successes going on and what are you doing and how can we replicate it and work that in, and then creating systems so that we can work with principals on a monthly basis to support those best practices, and not just say you've got to do them, but having the ability to go in and work with them to do it. So,
see what's working.
Yeah. So in light of this data, we much like transportation's been up all hours of the day and night trying to figure out how to solve. Once it came in, we said we've got our work cut out. So if you'll indulge me for a few more minutes, I want to tell you some of the things that we have in place that we are very confident will have a significant impact on our growth and our achievement. One of those is, with your blessing last year, the hiring of Katie Warwick as our K-12 math specialist. I refer to with Dr. Howard the days of glory when we had people that were closer to the work. She's already done some stellar professional learning throughout the district. She's I think this week she was already, first week of school, she's already in 2 or 3 schools, out there with the teachers, sitting side by side, walking through the schools with the principals, doing the walkthroughs, providing them with the look for, so people, the administrators, the teachers, all know what those best practices really look like. She's going to model the lessons. With partnership with Dr. Warwick and Northeast Georgia RESA, we actually have, for the first time in many years, an alignment of elementary, middle, and high school math with our CGI discourse charts that we did with Dr. Hutchins from RESA. That'll continue through this year, but we're doing a study on something called Utah Math, which will be for our middle school, and we're going to do an exploration. And that's not just a curriculum, it's a shift in how you teach math. And it's really problem-based and discourse-centered. We know that just standing up and talking to kids about math and talking about it doesn't work. This age of learners, they don't really care to sit and listen. They have all the information they need right here, but they need to know how to problem solve. They need to know how to apply, and most importantly, they need to know how to talk about what they're learning. So I'm very excited about that. This summer, we sent our high schools to a professional learning, and there's something called the Math Vision Project. And that from elementary to middle to high, that pedagogical approach will be aligned, and it will be that problem-solving, discourse-centered approach. It won't happen overnight, but it's the first time based on, quite honestly, Mr. Hitzkes was here and he refers to the years of low. We were happy to have people, good people that stayed here. When we reduced the number of days and we said, thank you for being here, you're going to work less days and we have no curriculum, we have no resources for it. I mean, we had to do those hard things. But I think what happened is we also, we got a little softer because we wanted to make sure that people would stick around, the good people that stuck around would stick around. Well, we're not in years of low. And we have the resources, and we are able to now put those back in the teacher's hands, which also means we're able to put the professional learning, and with that will come increased expectations. So underneath Dr. Warwick, I feel very confident about where we're going with math. You approved the posting of a position for K-12 literacy. It's going to be very difficult to find somebody this time of year, and I'm not overly optimistic, but knowing that we can put that word out there, we have some teacher leaders already in our schools. Asia Ledford at Maysville and Gay Chandler at Maysville did some amazing professional learning on 4 blocks and foundations, and they're willing to continue to do that throughout the course of the year. And so if we don't find that right person, we're not going to fill it just to fill it. But if we don't find that right person, we have reinstituted expectations of frameworks in the classroom. Every teacher, every special ed, parapro, regular ed, ELL, everybody has gone through the trainings over the course of last year and this summer, and then also with our administrators, those look-fors. What do I need to know when I'm walking into an elementary or middle school math classroom, a literacy classroom? So reinstating things that we know work in regard to best practices. Very excited. We have Kat, I almost gave you a doctorate. We have Kat, flipping close, who has taken with our curriculum team works. We had folks all summer long that really focused on pulling together the best of the curriculum resources, alignment with rigor. We got rid of this shared drive, the P drive that we used to have that housed everything for the last 200 years. And we said we only, what's that?
It's easy now.
175 years. But we have centralized, there's a portal that Kat has created that every teacher has access to all the curriculum materials, which is something that we haven't had in the past either. If you're a gifted teacher, or you went from 3rd grade to 5th grade, or you just wanted to see, I'm a 7th grade biology, a 7th grade life science teacher, what are they doing in 5th grade, and what are they doing in 10th grade? We have centralized and open, my quote, full transparency. Everyone has access to that, and it's literally, once they go into their computer, there's a link right there, so you can't lose it. It's right there. And that will continue to be updated with our common assessments, common pacing in all of the instructional materials and guides that we have. We actually have from all of our content areas, they have their goals listed, our district content area goals, so everyone knows what we are striving towards, so that's a constant reminder when you go in to access those materials. You know why we're having the professional learning conversations that we're having. That was deliberate. We expanded, I mentioned our professional learning with literacy, and we'll expand that into middle and high school when we find the right fit. We did put we have essentially taken money that used to be, we've expanded, last year we increased by 50% the school's discretionary budget for instructional. We went and looked at that this year. We saw our ELA is an area of concern. So we took more money, put it back into their budgets and said, use this for early intervention at elementary. Because of the ELA curriculum work this summer with our middle school, they've identified a resource that they wanted, and they couldn't afford that. So $19,000 middle schools, they have that resource. We're finally able to say, yes, we can give you that. Yes, we can give you that, and put that in their hands so that and this is not any additional money. This is us taking from what we're just really being incredibly strategic and very fiscally conservative and saying we can do without these 3 things if we put that in teachers' hands, and it's going to make a difference. So that's been something that we're quite proud of. We started Tuesday, but we're going to every Tuesday, Teaching and Learning will go to schools and highlight remarkable experiences. I've learned in this position if people don't see what you're talking about, they just don't, seeing is believing. So every Tuesday we'll highlight a remarkable experience, and the idea is you can email that teacher and ask for the ideas. We'll do that elementary, middle, and high all year long, and we have a repository then of areas of excellence, because we have many. Despite some of our areas of needed improvement, we have some phenomenal teachers doing some amazing things, and so we'll continue that. He won't say it, but having Mr. Johnson here to really be laser focused on school improvement with the MAP data as it comes out, to not just take the assessment data like we used to do and do a leadership retreat and try to support principals. He's out with schools, working with them side by side, looking at interventions, working with our multi-tiered system of support, Kristen Mobbs and her team, and looking down to the student level and saying, what are we going to do about these 10 kids, and knowing the names of those 10 kids. So that's school-wide, pervasive. We have, or district-wide. We have pushed almost all of the professional learning money to the schools. I was working on this morning. We have, between Title II and PL, we have $372,000 in professional learning that we spend, and only $11,000 of that is for district, and it is because we are required to go to various DOE training. So all that money is at the teachers, at the school's discretion. If it's in your school improvement plan, you know that this training is going to work, then the answer again is yes, go to it. Let's figure out a way to get you the professional learning that you need. Likewise, last year we started, this year we were significantly reducing the amount of time we pull teachers out of the classroom, because if they're not in the classroom, then you don't know what's happening, and then you potentially have results that you're not overly pleased with. So trying to do more professional learning blended. We had a webinar this afternoon. Everybody, all the elementary APIs participated, but nobody had to leave their building. So exploring Google, Canvas, and then face-to-face, you can't replace that, but doing it after school, and instead of having an 8-hour session 2 times a year, let's do 8 one-hour sessions. Yes, it means people have to travel, but that's, when you do professional learning, to build capacity, you really need that ongoing, and you need time in between to implement. So we're instituting that this year. We also have a performance monitoring tool that we introduced to our principals, which is looking at attendance, school climate, performance, and that'll be the core of our principal meetings. And it's also a very robust tool that allows multiple people at the school to input data, to paint a picture. So again, we're not relying just on milestones. MAP is amazing, but what are we doing in between? We have the ability to progress monitor, and again, that'll be a focus, and that's aligned to their school improvement plans. I mean, we hopefully get the sense that we're not taking this lightly. We have a lot of initiatives, a lot of efforts that we feel very confident in, that we don't want to overwhelm our teachers. So a lot of the stuff we're doing is really in the background, and then it's supportive of our school administrators. But I just wanted you to know that those are some of the things that we're doing to address the areas where we know we have work. And the other thing that Dr. Howard mentioned is we have this evening 3 of our schools that will talk more specifically about their areas of strength, their areas of needed improvement, and what they're going to do. And that was intentional so that it can be more conversational. Any questions? I told you I'd be brief.
I've heard really good things about the new MAP support. Really good things from teachers. That's great.
They've been starving for it. They
deserve it.
They do
They
deserve
absolutely
it.
deserve it. So, thank you, Mr. Nicholson, and that is a lot of information. We'll continue through the next couple of months as we have our different schools. Some of this will continue to evolve, and you'll have a greater depth of understanding, but I appreciate the work that's gone into this. We've talked for several years about how operationally focused we've been because of necessity to do that, but we've made an ultimate commitment this year that our conversations are about teaching and learning and about student experiences, so that's our absolute commitment. So, East Jackson Elementary School, I think as y'all come forward, I want to thank you for being here. I know it's the first week of school and you're probably worn slapped out, and rightfully so, but thank you so much. Your enrollment is right at, what, 675?
689, and then we're going to draw 2 more pre-K, so we'll be at 691.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that, but y'all just keep making it happen. I spent the first day or 2 of school, I think, and it was just an exciting place to be. So share with us your. It's been great.
And Dr. Howard, the board members, you do have what they were going to be referring to.
Yeah, if you'll just follow along with us. Okay, I'm Jennifer Halley, principal at East Jackson Elementary, and I want to introduce our wonderful, marvelous, relentless Cheryl Casani. Yes, our assistant principal. she claims this is her last year, but she has such enthusiasm every day. I don't see. I'm like, how are you? You're not gonna be able to leave us. I mean, every day she's just so chipper and excited. So we're very proud to have Miss Capone.
When I'm retired, I can just come in like at 9.
So we want to start by thanking you for letting us do the accountability report because I think it brings excitement to the schools to be able to share your strengths and your weaknesses, and it also puts us on the hot seat, which is good. I think it's really good because you do that in business. So I feel like we're running a business of 691 customers. So what is your school's greatest area of achievement? We looked at our milestones, but even before the milestones, I could have told you it was going to be reading and math. And that's because of the dedication that our staff puts towards reading and math. We relentlessly, every day, you have 90 minutes of math no matter what, and you have 90 minutes of reading no matter what. And if we ever try to pull teachers, they're like, no, that cuts into my math time. I'm not going to that assembly. You know, they're like, do it some other time, you know. So they're consistent with that 90 minutes. So that's what, and then our milestones, when they came out, it showed our highest achievement is reading and math. So if you look down at reading, you look at 3rd, 4th, and 5th, 80% of the 3rd graders are at or above grade level, and you compare it to the system in RESA. So in all 3 grades, you can see we're proud to be above the system in RESA averages. So that's exciting, and our teachers are excited. Math scores to me are down all over the state, but we do in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, we're still above the system in RESA, so our staff's proud of that also. What do we attribute to this success? Our excellent teachers. That's the #1 thing. So if you ask me what makes an outstanding school, it's the people you hire, and using the TEACS process or whatever teacher evaluation we go to is only keeping the best teachers. And I feel like that is the #1 thing. The #2 is the relationships with our teachers have with our kids. And I even brought up, we did some staff development this summer with the leadership, and we talked about a high school teacher at East Jackson Comprehensive High School that has outstanding geometry scores. So I've challenged all our teachers to have, you know, the highest growth like that, because I said we could just keep referencing Andy Briscoe with his scores. So we challenged our teachers. Everybody, we're looking at your growth, and we want to have that highest growth. So it's building those relationships. And our teachers, it's not like if it's 4th grade class, it's not the 4th grade teacher that wants that student to grow. It's the whole support group. Everybody considers all our kids their kids. The 3rd thing is the teacher's ownership. That's, you know, to make sure that all kids are making growth, and that's with the kid talks. We talk about our MTSS people. They are relentless with calling teachers in and doing kid talks. So I think that's our 3 reasons that we continue to have high achievement in reading and math. And then of course our teachers are relentless, and they came up with our motto several years ago, expect more, achieve more, and they stick to that every single day. So our greatest area of need is language arts and writing, and that didn't come to us as a surprise. We're continuing to work on that. You can look at 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. 3rd and 4th grade, it's low, but it's still above the system in RESA. However, 5th grade really hit hard to us because we had to say, whoa, we're not above the system or RESA. And then our narrative writing, the kids all did through the GCSA writing assessment they took. Our scores aren't where we want them to be in writing. So something we're doing is, we bought Lucy Calkins, the program, several years ago, but we didn't implement it with fidelity. We didn't make sure every teacher's using it every day. And then when we tried different models, writing kind of lost the 60-minute block. So now we're back this year with a full 60 minutes of writing every day using Lucy Calkins. And then we hired a teacher that is a support teacher that is highly trained in Lucy Calkins, and she's going to be doing professional learning with our teachers to support them. We've also hired a new teacher, Delane Phillips. Katie Garner is the new teacher with Lucy Calkins. Delane Phillips is a writer, an author herself, and she has a passion for writing. So she's already gone around to our teachers and students and taught and doing things enthusiastic about the love of writing. So we're hoping her passion of writing is going to took with our students. So, and at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Paponi to talk about growth, because she does an excellent job with teachers motivating. She's an excellent coach in motivating. Yes.
So I'm excited to talk to you about the growth analysis and what we did, and I'm so happy that you brought up the MAP assessment, because that's what we went back and we looked at. Like Mr. Nicholson said, when we first were looking at our growth, we looked at milestones, and we followed that one group of students from 3rd, 4th to 5th grade, and we saw those dips, and once we were looking at it, we saw that red come out, we were like, oh my God. But when we saw that, we were still saying, but we follow the same ebb and flow as the state and the county. So when we looked at growth there, reading was our highest growth. Again, because math was at the lowest. But then we went back and we really said, but that's not really good. We're really just following one group from 3rd to 4th to 5th, and you don't really get a good picture of your school based on that one group that's there. So we went back and we looked at our math assessment, and we looked at our growth from there. And according to our math assessment from last year, our highest area of growth was in math, which again, that was not a surprise, because we did put a big emphasis on that with a 90-minute block. And that's also an area where we also put in a lot of support people to reduce class size. So we felt like that students were getting a more individualized learning experience within the math. We're going to try the same thing again this year. We're not pulling out last year like we did, but we're going to continue with the support going into the classroom during math time. So we still continue with a lot of support in reading and a lot of support in math. Again, as you see, we had 68% of our students roughly. I averaged from kindergarten down through 5th grade looking at the math, and we had 68% of our students met their goals. Our highest grade level, it's funny to see that our 5th grade, their math scores weren't where we wanted them to be, but 76% of our students met their goals. When you're also asking about the math assessment, what's good about the growth there is that it compares a student to other students that are performing at the same level. So that's really just a good thing for us to see. Again, what was our lowest area of growth? It was language arts. And when we look at the maps, even though you see the data there in front of you that it says that language arts was at 61 and reading was at 58, that was really just based on one grade level that had a huge swap. So really when I did it grade by grade by grade, our greatest area of growth our least area of growth was the language arts part of it. What are we gonna do to do that? All right, so what are we gonna do? First of all that we're gonna do is we set goals with our students. We did some of that last year, but we need to do that more and be relentless with that. So Miss Hallie and I, each time that we see students, we're asking them, what is your goal? What are you gonna do about it? And you know, kids always say, well, I'm gonna study more. I said, well, what does study look like? That you can't do that. What is your goal? You've gotta know your Lexile level in reading, because for example, for 5th grade milestones, you have to be able to read in an 8-10 Lexile in order just to have a chance to pass that. So getting kids to know, this is my Lexile, this is where I need to be, what are you gonna do to get there? So it can't just be study more, it's gotta be, I'm gonna read more, I'm gonna work on my fluency, I'm gonna work on my phonics. We did a universal screener with all of our students last year and all of the Benton students that are coming to us. So teachers this year are equipped with more data than they ever have been before. They know what kids are weak in phonics, what kids are weak in fluency, what kids are having trouble with comprehension, so they can really focus in their lessons in those areas. The other thing that we're doing, I'm glad that you mentioned the money that you have for professional learning, because
the money that you now have.
Monday, we spent that money already. So we are bringing in a program called Mentoring Minds, and we also are providing training that goes with it. Gail Elrod, that was with us before, and she is now at recess. She's going to be coming into the school. We already have dates planned and set up for her to be pairing with our teachers and providing training for that. It's a program that really ties reading with writing, so we're trying to hit both of it there. We're also using the foundations and Lucy Calkins. We're purchasing more kits for that. Student ownership of their learning, so that kind of went with the goals. We really are putting that back on our students. We know that our teachers work hard. They can't work any harder than they are. I said, you've got to put it back on your kids. The other thing that we're doing is we want to recognize students for their growth. So what we've done is we've gone ahead and we've created posters for kids that meet their goal. Our theme this year is Mission Possible. So, and it's like your mission, whether or not you will choose to accept it, you're going to reach your goal. So this is an example of last year's first grade students from Benton and also from East Jackson, who are now second graders, that they met their yearly MAP goal from last year. So we've put these out in the hallways, and it's been a big motivator for students, for parents, and for teachers, because it's a good visual to see, all right, why are the number of students on my poster not really like as high as the number of students on another poster. So that was a good visual there at the beginning of the year. So we plan on doing that even more. The other thing is having our kids talks when we talk about goals. With the MAP assessment, it gives you a quadrant. And so you have achievement, high achievement, low growth, high growth. So the one area that we don't want any kids to be in is the pink area, because that's low achievement, low growth. You could still be low achievement and make high growth, and that's what we want. So then when we bring all of that in and we come down to our SIP goals, our goals, you can see that we really put them towards MAP and the MAP assessment, because that way it brings in all kids from kindergarten through 5th grade. Everybody can feel like that they're a part of it. The pressure's not just on 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers. It's everywhere and it's on everybody. Not that we want people to feel pressure, because we feel like if you teach the standards, you're going to make growth, you're going to make progress, and you're going to be good. So we tied that. Even though we said 70% of our students will meet or achieve their goal, we really, in our heart, feel like it should be 100, because that's what we want. But we accept that there is that bell curve, and that's a reality of it. And we feel like that if students are achieving, that's going to just tie in with the county's goal of milestones. If you keep achieving, you're going to reach your milestones goals. Did I cover everything?
Yes.
I know, and I went longer than I was supposed to, but everything that you were saying before made me think, oh, I have to add that, I have to add that. Today, I really only talked for 2 minutes this morning.
And we practice,
We practice.
Like, we're not going over 5 minutes, but
Yeah,
anyway,
I tried.
we
So,
probably did.
I know. So can we answer any questions at this time?
Yes.
All right. We did it.
What y'all doing?
All right, and it has been great this year. This is going to be our best year ever. Best.
And you're gonna reconsider about that.
Yes.
Oh, no, I'm still.
That's why it's gonna be.
That's the last year.
That's what she's thinking about.
That's why I always said, this is my last first day of school.
Oh.
This is my last day of school. My last accountability report.
But you know what's cool, Cheryl? You are still full of spunk, and we are so grateful for that. So very good. And we are grateful to the leadership at East Elementary. They are a flagship. They are pace setters, and we appreciate their performance. And Mr. Nicholson and I were there the first day of school, and they had a Mission Possible. It was so cool. I mean, it was just so cool. It was fun. So your kids were already sitting on the edge of their seats. So very good. All right, and so thank you for being patient, Ms. Barnett, and your students roll right into East Jackson Middle School along with Maysville and South Jackson. So yes, talk to us a little bit about where East Jackson is focused this year.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening. My name is Tiffany Barnett, and I'm the principal at East Jackson Middle School. Thank you to Dr. Howard and our board members and the members of the district office personnel for allowing us to come this evening to share with you some of the great plans that we are putting in place to really look at the needs of not only our schools but our systems. So thank you. We appreciate it. Also, let me just say I'm really excited about the work they're doing at East Elementary, because those babies will be coming straight to us. So you girls rock on. Good job. I want to first begin by saying that the commitment at East Jackson Middle this year is one of really looking at a comprehensive approach to school improvement. And I think that we would all agree that school improvement cannot occur if we don't look at every aspect of the school. And so we at East Jackson Middle School have invested a lot of time and a lot of energy and commitment in looking at not only what the numbers, the raw data reveal, but also looking at the factors, the contributing factors that have impacted the data. So a comprehensive approach to school improvement means that we look also at school climate. We look also at the feedback that we receive from community members, our parents, stakeholders. We look also at, what are our teachers saying when they respond to surveys. So we have been investing, a lot of time looking at all of these pieces in an effort to really approach school improvement from a global view, because we know that school improvement can't happen by just focusing on a number. So let me get started by, first of all, we want to celebrate our successes. And while I know that Todd explained that the green ink was out, and I would like to say that that's what happened when you look across at East Middle's data, that's not the case. And we own it. And so, our conversations at East Middle have been, yes, we're owning it, but what are we going to do about it? That's the most important thing. And so, but to do that, we want our folks to understand that if you know what success feels like, you're more motivated to reach for it and actually go out and get it. So we celebrate the successes that we do have. So our school's greatest areas of achievement this year have been in reading, in our 9th grade honors lit course, and in our 9th grade physical science course. In reading, we have looked specifically at cohorts of students because we believe that it's important to see what we have done with the students when they come to us in 6th grade and how far we're able to take them by the time they reach 8th grade. And looking at those cohorts of students, we were very excited to see that with the 2017 8th grade class of students, we saw an increase of those students by a 20 percentage point increase in the percentage of students who were at or above grade level in reading. And so, while we also understand that only having 81% of our 8th graders at or above grade level in reading is not where we want to be, we also recognize that we've grown kids. And so we've moved them from when they joined us as 6th graders and to the point where they turned, we turned them loose to the high school, we grew kids. So we would like to continue to see the growth be higher and the achievement be higher, but again, we do celebrate that success. This year, we were excited to see that with our students enrolled as 8th graders in the 9th grade honors lit class, 100% of those 8th graders in that course were proficient or higher, and very excited to find that when the rankings were released at the state level, our kiddos at East Jackson Middle School, our 8th grade kiddos, ranked 26th in the state. Out of 513 schools, that's middle and high, whose students took the EOC for 9th grade lit. So that was a great accomplishment for us. And one that we don't, place that celebration solely on the shoulders of 8th grade teachers, because as we know, when you talk about English language arts and reading and literacy, those are skills that are developed and that's a vertical process. And so our students were not successful in that class as 8th graders if it had not been for the work that had been done by every teacher that they had had previously. So we share that success. Our 9th grade honors physical science class, 100% of our students were passing with 88% proficient or higher, with an increase of 30 percentage points in the distinguished category. In that class, Amy Johnson Schofield teaches that class, and historically, maybe only 25 students after they leave 7th grade were recommended for the 9th grade physical science, but we knew that the right teacher, Ms. Johnson, could get it done. So we always pushed additional kids, and so, this year, for the 2nd year in a row, we actually created a second course and pushed additional kids in there that weren't predicted to be successful, but we gave them the chance because we knew we had the right person in the right course doing the work. And so, those students, I believe in 2016, had 7% of her students in the distinguished category, and this past year she had 37% in the distinguished category. So that was a great accomplishment that we were very happy to celebrate. To what do we attribute the successes in those areas? First of all, a school-wide focus on literacy improvement. Again, we are committed, and it really is an all-in commitment. And so every teacher had to take the step to be all in for all kids. So last year began the work of a paradigm shift. And so this year, our teachers were primed and ready to come in with the understanding of, we've now laid a few of the foundational pieces. We've seen the raw data. We've seen these are the things we know we need to do. Now we're going to get it done. But that's going to take every person on staff being all in for all kids, and that's what we've done. The school-wide literacy improvement model that we implemented included adding a literacy coach last year, who, with her help, Brooke Wilson, we were able to begin laying those foundational pieces. And so, with the literacy coach, we created a targeted intervention model. We included expectations for common instructional practices school-wide. We, from the ground up, developed grade level, content area, high frequency vocabulary list. And so that was intended to really help students target on those areas that are vocabulary rich. And so, as we know, students who have difficulty reading struggle with the content because of the vocabulary. So we felt like a school-wide approach to really targeting the high-frequency vocabulary words was a step to help our students build their vocabulary. We also looked at implementing intervention strategies by using iStation during a rotation model. So every teacher in the building, whether they taught math or whether they taught science or social studies, were included in a rotation model where they would have their students in the computer lab or on mobile devices working and logging into iStation or Read Theory. And so every student, regardless of their level, engaged in continuous intervention to help improve and grow their literacy strengths. We also invested time in vertically aligning our novel sets. One thing that we have found is there is a strong correlation between the students who score at the level 3 or higher, so proficient or higher levels. Those students are also the students who have a higher Lexile level. And so we found that there was almost a 90 to 100% correlation if you looked at the student data. So students who were scoring at proficient or higher were also the students who had between a 1000 to the 1085 Lexile level. And so that was a pretty fascinating fact, because that tells us, and I think that Jennifer and Cheryl mentioned this, but the Lexile levels are one of those pieces that we can't forget to include in part of our conversation. So let's continue to look at the Lexile levels, the text that the students are reading. Are they appropriate for the student's grade, the student's age, and are they appropriate for their Lexile level? And so ensuring that just because we've always taught it in this grade level, because we like it, doesn't necessarily mean that we need to continue offering that text in a certain grade level if it's not appropriate. So we did that, and with our 9th grade courses, we attribute those successes to rigorous curriculum and relationships with kids. Bar none, those teachers. Amy Johnson, her students will be continuing to come back for years to come to visit her, and they will still be continuing to refer to her as Ms. J. It's the relationship piece. And so we have teachers who have figured out how to make it work. Relationships and being, a teacher who knows how to amp the rigor up, student engagement, and as well as, looking at the rigorous curriculum. So our school's greatest area of need, we actually have 2 that we're going to focus on, and those are in the areas of ELA and math for both 6th and 7th grades. And moving forward and looking at the data, in 2017, our passing rate for ELA was 71.82%. 71 8200ths. Now, as Mr. Nicholson said, in Jackson County, we are not comfortable with accepting a level 2, because a level 2 means that student is still developing. They are not proficient yet. So while we understand that may be considered a passing rate, we only have 34% of our students proficient or higher in ELA. So that's the figure we're going to focus on. In 2017, our pass rate for math, levels 2, 3, and 4, was a 75.96%. But again, the figure we're going to focus on will be 32.6%, because that's the percentage of our students who were proficient or higher. And specifically in the areas of math, the domains that we will be looking at for 6th grade will be geometry and then expressions and equations. And in 7th grade, number systems and again, expressions and equations. So we really drilled down. Not only do we understand we have an area in our department, but we know that there are specific areas of weakness that we need to target as well. So what are we gonna do about this? We have a very purposeful plan. And again, this is a comprehensive approach, but some of the things that we plan to do this coming year, we are transitioning our literacy coach into an instructional coach. So we recognize that Brooke Wilson has many strengths as a teacher leader, that while we recognize she is definitely an expert in language arts and in literacy, she knows what good teaching looks like and she can recognize best practices. So we're going to utilize her in more of an instructional coach model rather than just a literacy coach. Continuing our literacy intervention model and implementing with Fidelity. Partnering with Katie Warwick, our K-12 math specialist, Katie Maddox, and other math lead teachers within our system. Again, I believe that Mr. Briscoe is going to be visited very often. We are excited about the exploration of Utah Math because in looking at what that program has to offer, it will bring to the table many of the components that our parent community and our students and teachers are saying have been lacking over the last several years in terms of math curriculum. The MAPS assessments, again, goal setting, ensuring that we are using the MAPS assessment process in its entirety. So, being sure that our students and teachers are investing the time not just in taking the assessment, but using the data to drive instructional improvement. Where do we need to focus those things? Data-driven PLCs with math and writing focus. Coaching conversations, and this year we are including continuous cycles of improvement. And our coaching conversations this year, Ms. Alexander and myself will actually be engaging in cycles of coaching and cycles of improvement processes with all of our teachers that will provide 6 additional opportunities for observations and feedback outside of the TEACS process, intended solely for the feedback piece. And so that's one thing that we're very excited about. Department chair peer observations. Again, we have tapped department chairs for a reason, and we believe that they should, we should be utilizing their strengths more than just, keeping the inventory. Expectation that students will produce 1 fully developed extended writing response per 6-week period is an additional piece for us. So in terms of looking at the growth is typically the area where we find the greatest success. Because again, I know it's already been mentioned, but when our students come to us and they have deficits, the success comes from seeing that we've grown them and seeing that we've been able to close the achievement gap. So the growth piece is pretty exciting for us. This year, one of the pieces we were excited about is that with the MAPS assessments, we saw that we exceeded the projected growth in math in all grade levels. And so 6th, 7th, and 8th grades, our math growth exceeded the expected growth in all 3 grade levels. In terms of the milestones, we saw an overall increase from 2015 to 2017 in regards to math, the overall growth with both cohorts of students that were analyzed. And with milestones reading, we also saw that both cohorts were above the state in average growth. And I know that Mr. Nicholson shared with you that one of the pieces that you don't have is that state growth average. And so we were excited to see that our growth exceeded the state growth levels. And so that was exciting for us. What do we attribute the success? MAPS data analysis and student goal setting in math and in reading. Intervention model was implemented during the school day for students failing their courses in math, and that included being willing and having the commitment of all staff to own all kids, which meant if they were failing math and they were failing language arts, then they were going to be pulled at least once a week, possibly up to 3 during a connection class. And so we had the commitment from all of those teachers in that department because they recognized that we have to own all kids, and that means if there's an area of need, how can we help? What can we provide? If it's additional time, support, whatever that may be. Targeted literacy interventions that were implemented with Fidelity, the high frequency vocabulary words by content area. PLC work with GCA. We brought in Kevin Rachinsky this year at East Middle, and he led the professional learning for writing across all content areas, and we're excited to now continue to really implement with Fidelity the professional learning that he provided last year. School-wide adoption of identified instructional strategies. All of our teachers really committed to utilizing, for example, the RACE strategy, and I know our elementary teachers were using the same strategies across the street. So that was, a commitment school-wide where we identified best practices and instructional strategies that would give us the biggest bang for our buck, and we provided professional learning for teachers and began committing to implementing them school-wide. What would be our school's lowest areas of growth? That would be in language arts, extended writing. We have a great deal of work to do with our students in regards to extended response and narrative writing. In math, 6th grade, geometry, expressions and equations. 7th grade, number systems, expression and equations. And what are we going to do about it? We plan to continue to implement with fidelity the professional learning provided by Kevin Rachinsky from GCA. Targeted focus on writing across the curriculum with additional professional learning for those teachers. Again, we're implementing the collaborative coaching conversations and the cycles of improvement for teachers this year. And continued development of grade level performance expectations and competencies developed by the principals' PLCs. And the work this year that we started at the principal meetings and the principal PLCs was very beneficial, because that is actually going to provide administrators, teacher leaders, and also classroom teachers with a framework for what the expectations are at every grade level in regard to these areas of focus. And so, for example, language arts teachers, by the time we're able to produce the final document, language arts teachers will know school-wide what is the expectation each grading period for producing works, writing samples for the students. So we'll have that piece. We also plan to provide a professional learning schedule with topics that are designed to target the areas of weakness. For being specific, in the area of math, we will be providing professional learning, some required and some optional, and those will be in the areas of explicit math instruction, responding through writing in math, incorporating concrete models, and the manipulative hows and whys. And so, those are just examples of the topics that we'll include in terms of our professional learning model this year. That leads us to our school improvement goals, and this year, the percentage of students in the 2017-18 school year, the percentage of students in grade 6-7 scoring at the proficient distinguished performance levels as measured by milestones will increase from 32.6% to 50% or higher. And typically, you'll find with school improvement goals that you will start off with a 3 to 5% increase, or an increase of 3 to 5 percentage points maybe. Well, when we did the math and we actually did the calculations and found what that actual target number would be, it wasn't good enough. So accepting that we would only be improving from 32.6 to 37.6, that's not good enough. So we set our sights higher, and so we are striving to have 50% or more of our students score at proficient or higher in the areas of math and language arts. During this school year, 2017-2018 school year, students and staff will meet our school attendance goal of 97% each month. Additionally, this year, going back to our comprehensive approach to school improvement, we are implementing a SOAR program. We have carefully analyzed our arrival and dismissal procedures and have made changes, significant changes, that we know are what's best for kids. So this year, we will be greeting students by having them come into the building and report directly to a classroom. We believe that housing all of our students, 545 of them in the gym with limited supervision, starts their day in an atmosphere that does not reinforce high expectations for behavior. Therefore, they leave that environment, come to their first period class, and we're expecting them to then launch immediately into an academic learning environment, focused and ready. We don't believe that we are setting our students up for success if we don't make a change. So the students come directly into the classroom. They start their day in the classroom with teachers. Dismissal, our students are dismissing straight from the classroom to the loading zone for buses and to the loading zone for car riders. Again, with the commitment from our staff and understanding that our staff are expected to arrive at 7:45 and they are greeting students at 7:50 when the doors open. And so that's a commitment that our staff has made, because we understand while it's not always the easiest for the adults, it's what's best for kids. Additionally, we're including this year attendance incentives, looking at the district attendance policy as well as the school. And again, an integrative approach to school-wide discipline and PBIS, excuse me. We believe that at East Jackson Middle School, we believe that if you approach school-wide discipline without including the incentive piece and focusing on the positive behaviors, then we can't have a realistic expectation of meeting the goals for either. And so you can't focus on a punitive approach to school-wide discipline and expect that the behaviors will change. Rather, you include your school-wide discipline as an integrated part of positive behavior reinforcement. That way you can focus on changing the behaviors, which will in turn impact your school-wide discipline. And so that is a little bit about our goals, and it seems like there's a whole lot more to share, but I know that my friend back there, Mr. Cobb, I asked him to kind of keep the timer for me, and I'm probably over. Yeah. Yeah, it died, right?
Arm went around.
Yes. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Barnett.
All right, thank you very much.
All right. Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Cobb.
Hi, hello. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
We're glad you're here. I'm sorry, I want to tell you what I was doing. We've been sitting for a while. I want to make sure the board is hydrated. So
Absolutely.
Troy's getting some water for him.
Oh, please
But
understand.
that's really, really less important than what you have to share with us. So.
Absolutely. No, health is important. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joe Cobb, and I am the principal of West Jackson Middle School. Dr. Howard, board, thank y'all very much for having me tonight. Folks from the county office, I know y'all work extremely hard, so thank y'all for being here tonight as well. I gotta tell you, let me just go ahead and start. This is the most exciting school year that I've ever been a part of. Since I have been teaching, it's phenomenal. The energy from the county level to the school level, across the board, it's really exciting. And I think next year, we'll all probably be standing up here telling you what records that we have set. So starting off with our performance, I'm not gonna read to you, but I'm gonna go ahead and share some of our successes. First off, you can see on our language arts milestones. And I think everybody understands, if you don't, the milestones came out in 2015, and they basically score a level 1, 2, 3, or 4. 2, 3s, and 4s are passing, 1s are no good. So everybody starts looking at the 2, 3s, and 4s because that's the passing score, and so that's what we looked at. In the first year, the milestones were all for our ELA pass rate was 68%. Last year, it was 83%. So we had a 15% increase over the last 2 years. And like my cohort over at East, our 9th grade language arts classes were phenomenal. 100% pass rate with 94% of them scoring 3s and 4s. This is great, which ranked 55th out of 513 other individuals in other schools that had the same test. Our math did the same thing. They had 100% pass rate, 97% of them 3s and 4s. That ranked 55th out of 513 state scores. So there was some success there, there really was. And the reason why we think we got there is because we kind of, first off, it's staff. It is absolutely staff, and you're going to hear me comment on a few staff members and where we've made improvements thanks to HR. We had a commitment, our staff had a commitment to making classes worthwhile, 70 minutes, making sure that the schedules work. We have a rotating class schedule, which means that in language arts, you can take language arts first period, 1 month. You can take language arts last period the next month. You can take language arts in the middle of the day the month after that. Studies show it's not always the length of the class, but it's when you take it that really, really matters. So we rotate that, and it happens in every grade level. It happens in every team, and they're able to see these students at different times. I don't know about you, but after lunch, I'm no good at math. So we make sure they don't always have math right after lunch. We have a real commitment to technology and literacy initiatives last year. I refer to what we have at West Jackson Middle School as pockets of brilliance. And that means we've got some folks that do phenomenal things that you won't see anywhere else in the state. What we need to do is make sure everybody's doing that. So our in-house PLCs, our professional learning communities, have really focused on those folks. With the help of HR and Dr. Howard and the board this year, we brought on an instructional coach that's going to help us refine that process, because that's really what we need to do, is refine what we do day in and day out. We created and implemented support labs during our connection times. So if students showing, weakness, not necessarily special education students, but if they're showing weakness or in math, we would pull them out of gym and they would actually go to these connection classes, these support lab classes. And once they reached a certain grade level, they could remove and go back into a traditional class. And originally that was funded with Title I, and we don't have Title I anymore. And so we pulled those back into our general fund. We think it's worthwhile to have those classes. And then really our in-house implementation of creative special education and ESOL modules, where we use those services during our connection time, as well as moving parapros around to different connection classes to continuously support the writing and the reading and the literacy piece. In our greatest area of need, as we said, we have kids passing. That's great. But when you look at that passing rate and you start looking at those twos, as we did as a leadership in the summer, all of a sudden, we want the majority of our students to score 3s and 4s. So out of our 83% pass rate, sometimes you're looking at certain grade levels that 60% of them are close to failing. So it's kind of how you address the data. And when you have 60% of the students and you say, yeah, they passed, but they were close to failing, it really is a wake-up call. I know in certain grade levels last year, we had a couple of staff members that were responsible for about 55% of our 1s and 2 scores. 55% of our students that failed or were close to failing, it came from just a couple of people. And we've addressed that. And we've gotten better at it. And you'll see it this year. What are we going to do to address this and make sure that over half of our students scores in 3s and 4s? Because my cohort back there talked about it. Fine-tune the vision. What we do right, we're going to increase the focus on that. We've added the instructional coach, commitment to what we call authentic PLCs. Sometimes you go to these things just in name only, but really, is it authentic? Are you getting something out of it? Because if you're not, let's scrap it. Let's find the right thing to do. And we have, as HR has pointed out to us, we have something this year we call it is a radical candor. We have, publicly we're going to praise, privately we're going to be very direct in what we need to do to improve our school. And that's what we mean about authenticity. Our teacher expectations, we have all this data coming at us. I know Mr. Johnson's up to it in here sometimes. We made a simple thing. Say, hey, look, you got all this data. Your homeroom, you know them. You know them backwards and forwards. You know what their attendance schedule has been like. You know what their behavior's been like. You know when they get off the bus and when they get off the bus and how they get off the bus. You want to make sure that they have breakfast every morning. You know your homeroom backwards and forwards, and really it goes back to that relationship piece that you hear everybody talking about. We have done something this year where we changed our bell schedule, where we will allow for vertical teaming. We do a lot of collaboration on grade level and content level, but this year we'll actually, as a whole school, we'll have all of our math teachers meet and all of our language arts teachers meet the last half of school in-house. We'll also invite 5th grade and 8th grade or 9th grade teachers to come collaborate with us. So we really kind of bridge those 2 gaps between the 2 schools. So, if you see all these things that we're doing, it's really to focus on that one little area of the 2s. We want to move those to 3s and 4s. In math, same sort of thing. We went from a 71 pass rate the first year of the Georgia Milestones to an 87% pass rate last year. That's pretty good. It's not so great when you look at the number of 2s. Passing is just not good enough anymore. It's just not. Not with our students, not what we expect from them. If you look, when the CCRPI first came out, I believe it was 2011, I think the highest score that West Jackson Middle School has ever scored is at 84.9. Our trend this year, we have a chance to actually have the highest CCRPI score West Jackson Middle School has ever had. Now, I tell you that, not for the accolades, but to tell you that we can do so much better than that. That is just a limit. That is just a limit of where we need to be. We need to be above that every single year. So what we've done in math and language arts, we've created our Cyber Academy Tools Day that many of y'all asked about at some of the board meetings in the past. And the offshoot of that is not only were students able to go home and accelerate their learning, and we had talked about students, the difference between, y'all had asked earlier about MAPS versus the milestones. Well, those students, when they were going home and using those computers, they were actually able to do some of those milestone testing. So they really got used to that and compare it to the MAPS testing. The other thing is that the students that didn't get to go home and do that, they stayed at school, and we got to work with them one-on-one. If you were failing math, you stayed in math all day long. It was a great resource, and I think it really reached a lot of our kids. So fine-tuning that process is something that I'm looking forward to Ms. Flippin helping me with this year. So we've got high expectations for that. So not everything's perfect, and it's not, because that's why we're here, to get better. At our science was 69% school-wide, you know, and I know that the milestones are only looking at 8th grade right now, but overall we see dips in that. I mean, we see fluctuations in our Lexile scores. We see students that come to us reading at 1,000 Lexile score, and they leave us reading at 1,050. While that meets and checks all the boxes, that's not growth, and that's not what we want for our students. So overall, we have looked at our school improvement plan to reflect our goals. And we look at our goal, our first goal is literally, and I actually did some math on this, which is scary, but if we increase our number of students by 6 percentage points that are scoring 3s and 4s, that will have 55% of our students scoring at the proficient distinguished level. That equates, though, to an approximate 90% pass rate. So when we say, hey, we got 90% of our students passing, we'll also be able to say, and 55% of them, over half of them, scored 3s and 4s. Same thing in math. 8 percentage points. You get that, you have 53% of your students scoring 3s and 4s, you're looking at a 94% pass rate. And if you add those two together, coupled with a focus on making sure we continue to have high attendance, making sure we've got students in class, making sure that at least 75% of our students are missing fewer than 5 days, then you're looking at a CCRPI score, not a record-breaking score for us, record-breaking score in the state. It would be one of the highest performing middle schools in the state, bar none. I think I was a little bit under 5 minutes, but trying to stay on track. Ladies and gentlemen, do y'all have any questions for me?
Thank you very much. Very good. So our 3 school leaders just provided you a pretty in-depth overview of their work. You might be tired just listening to them, but thank you, Ms. Halley and Ms. Paponi and Ms. Barnett and Mr. Cobb. I'm inspired by the fact that they're this deep into the improvement process already, this committed to making sure that we continue to get better, and I'm excited about the work that's going to happen. So thank y'all very, very much. And board, thank you, because I know that's a long time to sit. So I don't know if you need to do some jumping jacks or stand up, but hopefully you're still inspired and inspired by them. So Mr. Nicholson, I think any comment from you, or do you want to speak?
No, other than one of the things I failed to mention when you look at district trends, our special ed students in almost every grade level, every content area are significantly outperforming the state.
Absolutely.
And the same thing with our ELL. So when you see the pockets of brilliance, we have that district-wide too. So there are certainly many areas that we are excited about. And our lesson is, what are we doing well there, and let's make that happen.
That's right.
Elsewhere.
Consistent and pervasive practice, that's for sure. Very good. One more item under leadership and performance, and Mr. Schultz is here, and I just want to ask your blessing with this and remind you that we will be submitting our college and career application finally on September the 8th. Our goal is to have it done before Labor Day weekend, isn't it, Todd? Because we need to check that off in our minds. But I'm asking if you would so consider the board to actually have a resolution in support of the College and Career Academy as a part of the application process for a variety of reasons. Number one, and probably most important, we have over 120 support letters from our community. These are folks who have said, yes, this is important to us, we feel like we need it, and so if our community has stepped up to that level, we've had the amount of investment we've had internally, then I certainly know that you're already in support, but I think a resolution would be very appreciated and would help the strength of the application process. So there you just have a resolution that we support this partnership with the technical schools of Georgia, the university system of Georgia, as well as the school systems that have joined in this. So you will bring that to you on Monday with your blessings, and we'll ask that you approve that. So we look forward to that. Keep your fingers crossed, and we have high hopes and great expectations for that. It's going to really do some great things for our community if we are able to implement it. So.
And we'll hear that in December.
Yes,
right?
ma'am. We're supposed to know something by the first week in December, so that'll be a game changer for us. It'll be an exciting. Talk about remarkable experiences. That's another catalyst for us to be able to really create some experiences for kids. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Blankenship for some personnel updates, human resources.
All right. So I would like to talk about our staffing update along with our personnel recommendations, because they sort of go hand in hand. And referring back to what Ms. Halley said about making sure that we hire the best and keep the best. That has been our goal this year, and as you know, we hired almost 80 new staff members this year. 22 of those are in their first 3 years of teaching. And so looking at the statistics in Georgia, that almost 47% of teachers leave within their first 5 years. We're gonna be putting some things in place this year to make sure that we have a robust induction program for those teachers, so that we do keep them and we make sure that they are continuing to grow and get better. But with that said, we are growing, and in order to provide those remarkable experiences, we have to have remarkable teachers, and we have to have enough of them. And due to our growth, we have monitored our enrollment and our attendance very carefully over the last few days, and we did see a need to add an additional second grade teacher at North Jackson. You don't see that person on the personnel recommendation list. We're still working with some final things to make sure that that person has everything in place to be able to come on board and teach with us. She is actually already in our school system, but is finishing up some certifications. So we're working on that, and hopefully we'll be able to recommend someone there on Monday. We also had a need to add some paraprofessionals, both special education and regular education. You will see some of the special education paraprofessionals on our personnel recommendation list, and pending our background checks coming back, we should be able to add some kindergarten paraprofessionals as well, and we will have those ready for you. And then Mr. Farmer talked about the need to add bus drivers. You see 4 on the list already, and we have posted a bus driver position. We've made sure with Ms. Bridgman on our new website that we have very easy access to apply for positions in Jackson County. So we've made sure that there's a button on the front page, so with one click they go straight to our AppleTrack site, so that they can see what positions are open and apply right there. So that has already, just since in the one day since adding that button, we've seen a significant increase in the number of applications. So so we're hoping that yields some great bus drivers for us, as well as other employees.
So, Dr. Blankenship, before we leave that, just for clarification, the 4 bus drivers, are any of those replacements, or are they all new positions? Because that, from a budget perspective, I know that
some of these are replacements.
I was gonna say, I thought that we had 2 that are resignations, right?
So 2 replacements and 2 additions.
That's what I was thinking. So you will likely be bringing, with the board's blessing of supporting those additional slots, you'll be bringing some more as soon as we're able to bring them on board, at least 2 more, hopefully. Okay. And then from a other staff perspective, I guess you're going to speak to that during enrollment, but the additional positions that we're asking the board to support is the second grade at North
Jackson,
and then 3
additional parapros.
Right. Okay. At which West Elementary, and you can explain how they made that decision. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Are there any other schools where it looks like we very well might need to add another teacher in any of the other ones? Is it the numbers fall in that direction?
We're looking pretty good at all of our schools. We have a couple of grade levels that we're monitoring, but right now with those students that have been in physical attendance, those grade levels are okay. You know, it's difficult to add teachers after the beginning of the school year, and so West Elementary, in looking at their kindergarten numbers, they were higher than what we would like to see in kindergarten, but because they already have parapros there, and didn't feel like adding another teacher there at this point of the school year would be the best thing, they chose to ask for 3 additional parapros so that each kindergarten class could have a full-time parapro.
They were sharing them.
That instead of sharing, and that really makes more sense at that grade level. They, you know, from even before school starts, from open house, they're beginning to form those relationships with those kindergarten students, and make sure that first experience in school is.
It's hard to divide them up.
It is hard to divide up.
Well, and you know, I just recently had somebody ask me, what is the limit that you can have in kindergarten? And I said, you know, I don't even remember anymore what that is.
There's not.
I know
really,
we have a variance, don't we?
Well,
But-
state recommended is 21.
21.
With a
Yeah,
paragraph.
yeah,
But we have a waiver, so you
Yeah.
can try not to go above
We,
25.
and
yeah.
we try to stay 22 to 23,
Yeah.
and these were around 25, so.
yeah, well, they definitely need a parent program.
Mhm.
But across the system, we did cut back so that in other situations, 2 kindergarten classes share a parapro, right?
Yes, yes. And most of our kindergarten classes are around 2021. We've got some that are a little bit less than that, and some
Yeah,
that are
yeah,
around
oh, yeah,
22,
yeah.
so. Anything else you want me to?
I think that's good. These are pretty self-explanatory. I think the transfers are folks that were just, that's already in, we're moving forward with that. That's suggesting that
Yes.
music and art and so forth.
We did, have a couple of special education parapros that we needed to add in for specific student needs.
Yes.
So our enrollment update, we have, as of yesterday evening, we had 7,863 students enrolled in our school system. And as of yesterday, we had 7,546 students in physical attendance. So, and when you look at our numbers last year, and how many were enrolled versus how many showed up, it is about the same percentage of students. So we're seeing around a difference of about 250 to 300 students between the enrolled numbers and the actually present. We have about 96% of the students on roll in attendance on a daily basis. So we will continue to monitor that, and today was our 5th day, and then we'll look at it again on our 10th day. But our numbers have leveled off in terms of the number of enrollees. We were adding about 20 a day there for a while, but we are up almost 400 students from the end of school last year. So we're definitely growing. Hence the need to add some positions. I will commend our principals and assistant principals for their ability to determine the best scheduling models for their students to make sure that they have balanced class sizes and make sure that students are still getting the services that they need, especially through our special education and ELL services.
As Dr. Blankenship is transitioning to the next phase, I don't know if you had made reference or planned to make reference, but we've given you a copy of what I'd like to propose as sort of a revision to our, and we talked about this during the executive session last month, so we don't have to act on this now, but we would like your reflection and a bit, willingness to consider with Mr. Hitzke's transition to a new role and not being with us anymore. We discussed going back and looking at a chief financial officer so that you have one person who's really focused on the budget, and with the projections that we have going forward in terms of growth, that really is a need, that it's not someone overseeing budget and everything else that's not teaching and learning, but a person who's completely focused on it as a chief financial officer. And then at this time, not fill the assistant superintendent for operations, because we have very competent directors in the other positions. So that is the recommendation I'd like you to consider. But as we've gone through this process, Dr. Blankenship has also carefully looked at making sure that our job descriptions align with our org chart. So I'll let you speak to some revisions to some job descriptions, if you would, please.
So in doing that, as you remember last year, I began to take a look at all of our job descriptions and make revisions as we got to certain points in the year where we needed to update a job description in order to replace a position or what have you. We have taken this step with this request for a change in our organizational structure with the chief financial officer to look at creating a job description for that role, as well as taking a look at the 2 assistant superintendent job descriptions and making sure that they are aligned with the organizational structure that's in place. And so with that, you'll see a job description for a chief financial officer, as well as a revised job description for an assistant superintendent for human resources and student support services. Previously, that job description was an assistant superintendent for human resources and support services, which included food service, maintenance, and transportation. With our new organizational structure, those transportation, nutrition, and maintenance fall under operations. And so we've revised the job description to more accurately reflect the responsibilities of that position. Likewise, we've revised the assistant superintendent of, it was the assistant superintendent of finance and operations. Actually, it's finance and information services, and so this is a really significant. This is a significant change because removing both with information technology, moving into teaching and learning, and then the finance piece moving into a chief financial officer role, then that job description really needs to reflect the leadership over the transportation, plant services, and food services. So the job description that you see there will reflect that, and with the addition of the chief financial officer, it would just be an assistant superintendent for operations.
So if you'll review these, I'll be here certainly all day tomorrow and all day Monday. If you have any questions, give us a call at this time. The goal is just to make sure that we are focused on continuing with excellence through efficiency with the CFO, and I'd like to talk with you about the possibility of moving forward with that. That's a very important role, and the others right now are, we're going to hold off on the replacement of Mr. Pitskis technically in terms of operations, because as I said, we've got very competent folks that are doing a very good job at transportation and maintenance and food service certainly. So we'll touch base on those. All right.
And so then finally, with the as Ms. Dodge is going to speak to you tonight about the recommendation for a new accounting system that we have taken a look at, we would also like for you to consider an additional service through a vendor that we already use for our applicant tracking, for absence management, and for time management. And that vendor is Frontline. We would like to add their Insights platform, which is really their human resource information system, along with Frontline Central. And so this is perfect timing, really, because the pieces that the accounting system does not provide, Frontline Central, Frontline Insights does provide. So where the new accounting system allows for the storage of accounting and tax records, the Frontline Central allows the storage of electronic personnel records. And the real benefit to this is that it's going to allow our employees 24/7 access to their own personnel records. It will allow them, in certain instances with permissions, for them to update information like their address and those kinds of things. Any item that it's permissible for them to update, it will allow them to update rather than have to go through a workflow coming to payroll or benefits or any of the other HR people to for them to have to do for the employee. So it's going to reduce some of the paperwork and time that's associated with those tasks for our employees here, and allow the teacher or the staff member to take care of that themselves. Probably the most exciting part of this whole piece is a mobile app that is a part of the Frontline Central platform.
This is big.
It's huge.
Drum roll.
It's huge.
In itself.
What this mobile app will allow employees to do is to manage both their attendance and their time. through this mobile app. So if a teacher has to be absent, they can go on their phone and they can record their absence. They can request a sub from the Frontline app. If a bus driver has access to this app, they can clock in and clock out from the app. It has
GPS.
It has geolocation on it, so Mr. Farmer can actually, if there's ever any question about where an employee was when they were clocking in or clocking out, he can correlate that with the Versatran system and make sure that they were indeed where they said they were. But it will reduce the amount of paperwork for the timesheets. It is a tremendous amount of paperwork for transportation payroll. The timesheets have to go through multiple hands, and so the hours that are associated with that accumulate pretty quickly. And so this would allow not only for those employees, and we're looking at it just for bus drivers, but we could determine any other subset of employees that we felt like it was important. If you have an employee who works in multiple locations, it would make sense for them to clock in and clock out. And you can actually set it up so that it only allows them to clock in and clock out at certain locations. So that way they wouldn't have to be tied to just one location like they are now. So they have to go to one location, clock in, and then travel to wherever else they need to be. So it's going to reduce some travel time for them on that end. But it will also give us the ability to then electronically approve through a workflow process payroll. So now when an employee turns in a timesheet, it's approved by their supervisor, and then I sign off. So they sign off on it, the supervisor signs off on it, then I sign off on it. This would allow us to be able to do all of this electronically through a workflow. And so it's going to eliminate paper costs, it's going to eliminate some time and effort, and really streamline
efficiency.
Yes, increase the efficiency of those processes. So we're very excited about it. It is something that we have gotten a quote for a locked-in price over a 3-year period, but it's not something that we are committing to for 3 years. We certainly don't foresee wanting to go away from it once we have it, but it's definitely something that we feel like will increase our efficiency here.
So we were going to get you a radio flyer, little red wagon to pull around your stack of, I mean, literally payroll.
Oh yes, I should have brought it
high.
August is a really small month for payroll, and it's only about this tall. Every other month is about like this, and it's about, just for me, and I'm not complaining about having to do it. It's actually quite interesting to see, the work that our employees put in, but it takes about 6 to 8 hours.
And it's inefficient because it's mostly paper shuffling.
Right. It's mostly paper shuffling. With each of our other, and then you consider every supervisor has gone through that part of that stack as well. But
who's the provider again?
Frontline,
who we already use for ASOP. They are our integration system already. It's just an additional service as a component.
And then the other piece that I didn't add is that Frontline Insights, the platform that's used, then allows all of the pieces that we have to integrate together. So we can actually run reports across the time and attendance and absence management systems to correlate those two. It allows us access to some research and some professional learning that we've not had access to previously with Frontline. And I just think it'll be a huge...
I think over time it will save staffing, certainly.
It certainly will.
For, what is it, 16,000?
And a year, 16.8 a year. It will also, and we have this ability with both the new accounting system and with Frontline, but we'll determine which way would be best to move forward with it, but we can administer our employee annual contracts that way as well. So it's really, we'll make a one-stop shop.
About how many employees do you think that would replace? I mean, the system would replace?
I don't think it would
It's
replace
not going to,
employees.
Oh,
it's
I
going
think
to
we'll
allow
have to
us
hire
to.
down the road as we
Right,
grow.
I think it will increase the efficiency of the city. We'll have to be people
Right,
shuffling
yes.
paper. Right now, David and or Glenda Campbell could really use a person to do nothing but track
But
timesheets for bus
absolutely,
drivers.
yes, it's
So
it's
if we had something like this with the
huge
GPS,
benefit.
you would eliminate that need.
Right. We really run a pretty lean, operation here in terms of people. And so what this is going to allow us to do is to allow our people to work more efficiently. So rather than having to focus on papers, they can actually focus on helping people. And I think that's really where, if we want to develop and retain our best employees, we need to be focusing on them, and streamlining what we can to make the process more efficient.
Well, and they're gonna, I mean, as we grow and we have to attain more staff, then our payroll and HR people are then gonna be handling and trying to provide support and customer service to more staff people. And, so this is just gonna help provide them that time that they need to focus on the actual employee and not just the paper.
And the processes that we've already put in place through our frontline applicant recruit and hire solution has already reaped benefits. With the amount of time that we spend on the onboarding process, we're really able to focus on the face-to-face piece of that rather than on the paperwork piece, because they're able to complete their paperwork electronically now. And this would integrate all of that together and allow us to share information between those systems and the accounting system. So we made sure in our last meeting with the accounting system that representative that they would integrate seamlessly. So
I think it's a great opportunity for us to continue to excellence through efficiency. So I want to pause there for just a minute if you don't mind. I really am just trying to be considerate. School leaders, you are always great. Appreciated if you stay, but I know you have bright and early rollers in the morning. So if you want to stay, we're going to wrap up soon. But if you're ready to go, I certainly would support your going home and getting some rest. So feel liberated to go if indeed you would like to do so. So, but thank y'all all for being here and take advantage of this. But Dr. Blankenship, this is something that rolls right into the conversation with Ms. Dodge about. We've been talking for many years now about the accounting platform that we've had for a very long time, which has served us very well. But we haven't done the upgrades, and it's really not upgradable. It's not a program that is really going to continue. So we knew that this was an investment that we needed to make, and so the key is now is probably the time. So why don't you speak a little bit to Smart Fusion? This is something that Mr. Hitzkus as well was involved in early on,
Yes,
and I
and
picked up.
it is a piece that is
In the
already
budget.
in the budget.
Right.
This is not an additional request. It was already planned for, and it is a significant cost. But my main conversation is going to be to explain why we didn't put it out for bid. There in the state of Georgia, there is obviously a tremendous amount of reporting that is required by the state, either through the Department of Audits or the Department of Education. And so your accounting software and the information it produces has to be compatible with those reporting pieces. And so there are 4 main software systems in the state of Georgia that are used by the majority of the other school systems, and that we know for a fact are compatible with all those reporting pieces. And that is SSUI, which is what we're on right now, PC Genesis, which is the accounting software provided by the state, and then the other 2 are Smart Fusion and Munis. And PC Genesis really isn't an option because it would be absolutely taken several steps backwards. It's an older system, and it just, one, it doesn't integrate very well with our other systems that we are trying to use to make everything more efficient and talk back and forth to each other. But again, it's also very antiquated and would not help us in the process of trying to, excellence through efficiency. So the two systems that are really options are Smart Fusion and Munis. And we have talked with both companies, they've done presentations, and they have both given us quotes. And I provided you like a rubric, a little matrix that shows the breakdown between the four systems, the cost, and their capabilities. And so our recommendation is to go with Smart Fusion because it is an extremely robust, up-to-date, excellent system that has multiple capabilities and built-in pieces that are going to help us with position control as far as staffing, budgeting, it's electronic processes, workflows. Instead of having to print out 4 copies of a PO and pass it out to the multiple people, you can actually create a workflow where those requests go through electronically. All that data is stored electronically. You can scan in invoices, attach them, and then you don't have stacks and boxes and warehouses and additional warehouses full of paper. So it's a tremendous benefit in that respect, but it's also about half the cost of what we expected a new accounting system was going to be. They've been really great, and their first proposal was about $170,000, and this last one that they gave us is about $125,000. So a reduction in price of about $45,000 with our negotiations and working back and forth. And if you look at it compared to the other system, it's significantly less expensive. The other one, by the time we added on all the pieces and the training and everything, it was actually going to be close to $500,000 for everything. So our recommendation is to go with Smart Fusion, and they have already said that they could, once we get approval to implement their system, they could get us on their schedule and have us converted by the 1st of the year, right after the holidays.
So we could build the 2019 budget using
from the new system, and with its very controlled, capabilities and abilities to put in what you want as far as staffing and numbers, and instead of generating 5,000 spreadsheets and comparisons, it does it all right there in the system for you.
Would there be additional charges for, like you said, with training with this other group? Would there be any additional charges than what's we're showing here?
That is it.
All that's included?
Okay. And he said he would come. They presently are in Elbert County, and what are some of the other counties that are?
Raven has it.
There's several.
Madison, Foothills, Lumpkin is currently converting to them.
But he said he would come and actually go through the transition with
yes,
us.
our representative is actually, believe it or not, part-time finance director for Elbert County, and also a consultant, a sales rep for Harris Computer for Smart Fusion. And so he knows the system inside and out, and he knows it from, all the different perspectives of a school system. And he said that he would, since he's right down the road, he would be more than happy to come on site and go step by step with the different, with payroll and accounts payable and the schools during the implementation process. He said we can make it very, very easy.
And we did have Dr. Blankenship and Ms. Dodge were both very deliberate about making sure everybody that works in payroll and everybody that works in accounts payable were in on all of the reviews. So they've seen the processes, and the people who are actually our worker bees and do the work. We felt very good about
They are
it.
very, very, very excited about the opportunity of having, something that would make their job a little bit easier.
This annual maintenance, is that locked in for a certain period of time, or
It's
is
really,
that considered something that will fluctuate much?
no, it will not fluctuate much. I mean, that's pretty standard. I mean, because it's based on, the modules that you get from them, yes, because I mean, there's multiple, of course, areas, and, so, you know, as long as we didn't add other significant pieces, then that would be.
Help stay back.
Is that price per year?
Yes.
Which is relatively
which is-
comparable to what we're paying now.
Yes,
or
it's
actually a little bit overtime, a little
you
less.
pay that annual service and maintenance agreement with any accounting system that you would be using.
And that's about what we're paying now, you say.
So that's for your consideration. I do think it's important that we try to move forward with this, to become much more efficient in the way we do it. I think when Jamie was building the budget last time, he said there were 144,000 lines just for payroll.
Yes.
Just not, you know, I mean, then this definitely has an integration component that will help us become more efficient.
And again, it is in the budget.
Right.
It's already in.
It's already built in the budget. We had
budget.
planned on trying to implement this. This is
Yes.
almost to a point of a necessity, really.
Yes.
A new system of some sort.
Of course, the piece that is not general fund funded, it's in the general fund budget, the SPOS funded portion of it would be a SPOS project that would need to be approved by you guys.
A portion.
A portion, yes.
Okay.
Yes. It would be about half and half. Half would come from general fund, half would come from SPOS.
We originally had about 200,000 in SPOS, and when we shipped the buses, we moved some, because we pushed
some
buses into SPOS.
Yes,
Right.
and moved
Right.
some of the expense over to general fund.
Right. All right, speaking of SPOS, talk to us about that.
Yes, golly, geez, let's finally get to the fun stuff.
That's right.
So, the financials, we are still looking great. The one thing that I wanna point out is, we ended this month with over $5 million in fund balance. I went back, as you can see, on the fund balance comparison sheet, that, there's not a month that, we ended July as high as what we ended this July with our fund balance. If you look back, fiscal year 12 is the closest, and so, I actually went back to fiscal year 04, and we have not, in, so 15 years, we've not ended, the month of July with this high of a fund balance. So I'm super excited about that, and, we are definitely trending, I can say pretty confidently, to be able to make it through the fall
Without a tan.
So,
That's wonderful.
yes.
And we're even paying bills that we usually had to wait
we
until
usually would-
after tax time. We usually
Yes.
delayed like RESA bills and things like that.
And
We actually
that-
had to pay those.
I mean, some of the bigger bills, like our, liability insurance, workers' comp, things like that, I mean, we paid,
That's right. Which is why you see that 21% on some of the support services and so
Mhm,
forth from the annuals.
So yeah, if you look at the actual financial report, and you look at the fact that, our total expense is at 9%, and we're actually only 8% of the year, that is absolutely due to the, having paid the renewals, annual one-time renewals, the liability insurance, and a pretty significant portion of our workers' comp insurance. So I expect to see that level back out and us be right at, if not below, where we are at the point, during the year. So it's
All good news.
It's good news,
Very
thank
good news.
goodness, because
Yes.
with the way that we're growing, it makes me,
A little anxious.
yeah,
Which,
I lose a
um,
couple hours of sleep over it.
Well, so the original budget, but, well, I'll let you speak to the tax digest, we've been in close communications with it. We don't wanna skip LGIP, do you wanna just explain to them why that's an item on the agenda?
Yes.
Our, our
Yes,
local government investment pool.
I'm sure y'all remember in the past, anytime we've made any kind of change to who has access to, our, authorizations on our LGIP, our investment account. We actually have to provide a resolution, an approved resolution to, the state treasurer's office before they'll implement those changes. So that's what this is. It's,
I have a copy for you, it's a pretty lengthy document that takes JV's name off and adds Aaron's name.
No, adds Aaron.
Aaron.
I'm already on there, adds Aaron.
Yes.
On there to help assist in some of those, transfers and transactions, with that account.
So two names, checks and balances
Yes.
as well as.
Yes, absolutely. And just give somebody else authorization to be able, in case one or the other of us were not available for any reason.
So then the exciting news is that we've been in close communication with Candace Taylor as well as Mr. Sargent with our tax office, and so the preliminary budget that we presented in May was projection, and so now the real numbers have come in, and what you have there, Annie, you want to speak a little bit to, you've got a 5-year history there, and the board needs to decide whether we leave the millage rate as is, or we consider a rollback.
With the digest that came in, as you can see, there is an increase to the overall value, and with that, when you plug in various pieces of information and it calculates, it will tell you whether or not you should roll back the millage rate, so that you end up collecting the exact same amount of taxes on the new digest value as you did in the prior year, or if you decide not to roll back and you leave the millage rate the way it is, then technically it's considered a tax increase, which of course y'all are familiar with. We've done it, several times before. And as you see there, if we went to the rollback rate, it is 18.712, and our recommendation would be to leave it, which would mean having the tax hearings and doing the advertisements. One, to be able to absorb and handle the growth that we have discussed and we're aware of, and the additional positions that are going to be added, but also to help compensate for the $2.5 million increase in TRS that we'll be seeing next year. We got that information this week. It is increasing from 16.81% for our contribution to 20.9%. So automatic right off the bat, before you add staff, adjust salaries, anything, it is $2.5 million expense increase for us next year.
That's a greater increase than we had last year to this year.
Yeah. It's the biggest increase I've seen in TRS ever. So it's something that that luckily we know early enough to prepare for, but definitely something that we're gonna have to.
So Anna ran some numbers, and we talked about these this afternoon with the additional positions that we've asked you to support with bus drivers and the 3 parapros and putting those in the budget. If we leave the millage rate as is, we certainly have a small increase in our fund balance, but I think it was only like $25,000. If we roll back, then our fund balance, we're spending anywhere, depending on how much we roll back, $300,000 to $600,000.
Yeah, we would be deficit spending anywhere from $300,000 to almost $700,000.
So, while the overall digest increase is very good, and we're grateful for that, these new increased expenses as a result of TRS, as well as enrollment increase.
And unfortunately, with the way that the state funding is handled, it's a year to 2 years in arrears, and so basically it's on local taxpayers to help support this kind of significant growth until we see the, state funding catch up a little bit.
Right. And Anna did some analysis that she did some analysis that we went through, and for the local homeowner, $150,000 house is about $20, $24?
Yeah, anywhere,
$24 to $50.
I looked at,
Annual.
homes valued between $150,000 and $250,000, and if we leave it at 19.131, the average cost would be, or an increase to property tax would be anywhere from $20 to $40 for the whole year. So it's not a huge increase for each taxpayer, but it's a huge benefit for us.
So if you all discuss that, as soon as we can make a decision and a recommendation from you, it would be appreciated, because if we are going to leave the millage rate, it will result in the hearings for both the millage rate, the advertisements, as well as setting the budget. So, adopting the budget. So, she has a tentative timeline there. Now, if you decide to roll back, the millage rate hearings are not a necessity. They're not required, but we still have to adopt the budget. So, if you'll look over this and then let us know, we would like to be able to advertise the 5-year millage starting next week.
Well, yeah, we'd like to be able to, we would like, if possible, to have a tentative millage set tonight, so that we can go ahead and start for the timeline for everything to get advertised, and the hearings, and to meet tax commissioners' deadlines for their reporting. We would need to go ahead and start getting advertisements in the paper Monday, or submitted to the paper on Monday.
I wonder if they acted on it Monday, if Mr. Buffington could get it in. If we got it to him first thing Tuesday morning, is that a possibility?
You call and fill in the whole space.
Okay.
Fill the whole, what size you want held.
Okay. Because the board may not be in a position that you want to make that decision right now. If you're not, then we want
I don't think we have an option with the increase to.
So it's 19 point what now?
131 is what
Okay,
we're currently at.
and you talked about doing what?
Staying. So technically, we're not recommending an increase in the millage rate.
No,
Just
it
keeping it
stays the
as
same, but we
leaving
would
it the
earn a
same.
little more money, so
Yes.
we have to have it.
We have to advertise it, because technically,
the
it
local
is
taxpayers
increasing what
their
we
taxes.
receive.
I think we have to for this year, and then next year we'll readdress it.
Okay. Well, if you're in support of that, that will allow us to proceed with the advertisement. We actually can't act on it until we have the hearings and vote exactly, but, all right, so we'll advertise that and have the hearings, and very good. All right, and you have a hearing schedule there, and the last one, which is September 15th, is you have to have 3 hearings. So we usually try to do a morning one. If you will look at your calendars, that can be adjusted if it doesn't fit you. Anna was just trying to do
we were just approximating, we were just trying to get something in there. We were trying to set as many of the hearings at already scheduled meetings that we could, and still meet all the crazy state requirements as far as the number of days, and the number of advertisements, and time of the day that you can have the hearings.
So if you can look at your calendars, and if not even right now, but maybe Monday, if we need to amend this, we'll.
Oh, absolutely, yes, and I mean, again, it's a month away, so we can adjust it accordingly to whatever fits your schedule.
It is, Mr. 7:30. We can do it at 7 o'clock. All right, very good. Well, thank y'all. Dennis and Josh, y'all have, it's about a 1-hour presentation, right? Or a little less than a 1-hour presentation?
I got it down over the head, so that was about the best.
Send it to me in the mail.
He'll check his email for that.
We could probably do the second version. Everybody's good with that?
Thank you, Anna, very much. She's worked very hard and has had a new layer of responsibility and just stepped up as I knew she would, so thank you. But gentlemen, talk to us very quickly about the summer project.
I'll start. The tennis courts at Jackson County was completed this past Saturday, and they've only had at East Jackson High one day this week.
Without rain, it's been too raining.
Again, as I stated earlier, that the school's okay with that. They don't really need their courts right now, so It'll take about a week after they get started on there.
And painting projects, we're just finishing up some punch list. I think it turned out very well.
It looked great.
The roofs, same thing, punch list, waiting on warranty information, and, hopefully we'll be getting some money back on those
We have
very
submitted a
soon.
request for reimbursement and
And we did make a request for West Jackson Middle School for this coming up year for some renovations and modifications to that building.
And we have that in the SPOS budget. That building is 20 years old. It's due for renovation and modification, which will get us roofing, HVAC, plumbing, painting, much needed. We anticipate getting about 1.5 to 1.6 million from the state, and it does need it. You're right.
Very much so.
It does.
There's a lot of traffic.
There is. And we've got it in the SPOS budget. We certainly you will need to act on it, so we're not saying this is definitive, but we feel like it's the wise thing to go ahead and look at the traffic pattern over there and potentially do the asphalt, as well as work with the county on the possibility of getting a second entrance at 124 so that we can improve the traffic flow over there. So we'll be bringing that to you, but we wanted to go ahead and get the deadline. It's August 15th. We wanted to get our COPS application in, and we did that, so we'll be bringing that to you. But there's been a lot going on. Folks have been busy. It's been a very, very busy time, but that is, unless there's anything else from the group norms would say, be quiet. Everybody's tired, but we've had a great start. It's been a busy time, and I thank this team. We have an amazing group of folks. Friday, we were concerned about our buses, and I kept trying to encourage folks to go home, and finally at 7:15, I was able to convince the 9 people who are around this table that stayed to make sure every kid got home to go home when they found out the last child was home. So a great support team, and I'm grateful for the privilege of working among them. So are you ready to move on? Thank you.
That's it. We'll see you Monday night.
Yeah.
At South Jackson,
Yes,
6:30.
ma'am. Thank you for mentioning that at South Jackson.
Not gonna be down there in the dark.
But please remember, if your time allows, Southside Church would love to host you at 5:30 to walk through and see what they have done to that facility. That is still our facility, and I'd like for you, if your time allows on your way, to go by Southside and see what the old South Jackson looks like from 5:30 to 6:15. They'll be doing walkthroughs if you'd like to go see it. I know I'll be down there at 5:30 and encourage you, so we'll be at South Jackson at 6:30 for the actual board meeting. All right, thank y'all very much.
I know.
Sleep fast.